We're going to have a change in pace right now. I referred earlier to DesigNet working with Adobe, and DesigNet's working on, and they're going to show you basically, I guess you'd call it analytics, service management.
And analytics.
Yeah, service management and analytics. And it's a short presentation on what you can do with the data and what kind of benefits you can get from this kind of data, and then Adobe will be the proof in the pudding. So without further ado, welcome Jim Idelson from DesigNet and Joe Montione from Adobe Systems.
Thanks, Andrew. Well, good morning. As I was getting ready to come up here, I was trying to think of the right segue, and I think it came right out of Nick's talk. A lot of you, most of you, are here not so much in the distance learning or the education space, but in the business application space. And one of the things I thought of when I saw the music, when I saw the duet, what came to mind is that's the experience that we all want to create of collaboration, no matter what the application. And to be able to do that with tools available, to be able to create a result from a collaboration that's as perfect as that is really the powerful thing that we're trying to do. Okay, so in the next 30 minutes, 20 minutes, we're going to have a presentation that has two parts. I'm going to tell you the story of collaboration growth at Adobe and how analytics and reporting kind of grew along with it, and its role changed a lot over that time. And Joe is going to then take over and talk about some of the specific things that they're doing with collaboration, reporting, and analytics now. Okay. Training.
It's two buttons, so it's confusing.
Training. Okay. It's set for the southern hemisphere. Okay. This story, I'm going to tell you, give you a snapshot of where Adobe was 10 years ago, and then tell you about the now. 10 years ago, this was a billion-dollar company with 3,000 employees, centered on San Jose, headquartered in San Jose. The video conferencing deployment was a few systems, few endpoints. Joe was hired in 2000, and basically it was a technology experiment. A few endpoints making a few calls. By the end of 2009 into 2010, the company had grown by a factor of 3. But a very important element was, and just an indicator here, is 1,500 employees in India, and that's a wholly owned subsidiary operating very independently. Just an indicator of the kind of change that happened within the company. The number of endpoints grew dramatically, 800, and they're making 7,000 video calls a month. The service, the concept of a service, is a structured service, and it's supported with a whole bunch of the tools necessary to run it, and it's considered a strategic resource important to the way the company runs. Okay. This didn't all happen overnight. It didn't happen in a smooth process. It was really a series of different phases, starting from the technology experiment. I've named this the frenzied deployment phase, then the kind of get your act together phase, and then something really interesting happened. And it relates to what Andrew talked about yesterday, his concept of globalization 3.0. Okay, very important concept here. Okay, so back in 2000, when Joe came on board, there were a few endpoints there. Here are some pictures of those endpoints. This was the PictureTel Concord system in the lab, on the desktop, and in a conference room environment. The business was just 20 calls a month. Barely even knew that this stuff was there. It was moving along at a very kind of pleasant pace until September 11th. September 11 was the wake-up call. Everything happened then. The executive management team, like many other management teams, and this happened, I heard somebody else, one of the other speakers mention September 11th, suddenly had the realization that travel was risky and costly in dollars and in time. So they said overnight to Joe, get 24 endpoints out there. I don't know, were they global? global, and then 50 more or so over this ensuing period were deployed. The first time that I met the Adobe team was in this room in 2002. Those of you who know room design well will recognize that the camera placement is perfect. The screen size is, ideal for this room, which handles 3 to 25 people. You can see the lighting is just, and over here on the left, you can see the user-friendly user interface that the guy's waving. This was typical of the 80 rooms that they had deployed, and they all look different. I mean, this one was just one example, but there were lots of others, and it was as you can see. So we had no technology standards, no structured support. Joe did, though, get some demand to know what the heck's going on out there. Okay, how much is this stuff being used? We got a bunch of systems out there. Do we need to put a budget in place for this? So he started to produce a spreadsheet which had basically number of calls per month, ranking of utilization, and that's it. So that was reporting and analytics in this early time frame. At the end of this period, this was the state of life at Adobe. 80 systems deployed, about 1,800 meetings a month, and everybody was mad, including management. Management was stepping back and saying, is this a technology we really want to invest in? Are we doing the right thing here? Is video conferencing for real? I don't know if any of you have gone through any of this. There might be some resonating going on here. So they were asking this question. In late 2002, or that meeting that I mentioned before was the time I first met them, and that meeting was arranged by Polycom, their primary technology provider, who kind of recognized that maybe they could help, and they brought DesigNet in to help assess what was going on and to help see if there was a way we could get Adobe back on track. We did a benchmarking and best practices assessment. It took several months to complete. The output of it was a whole bunch of hard data, numbers, and recommendations. Adobe took that and combined it with additional research and data collection and analytics that they did inside, and used that as the basis for a go-forward strategy. And this was a solid strategy. It was funded, approved in 2003, late 2003. Joe's team, which is called the Conferencing Services Team, was formed and given a real mandate to go get the job done. And they did that. They rebuilt the service during this period, 2003, 2005, and used reporting and analytics as a core guiding, principle or capability to help keep things moving in the right direction. So they started to deploy real rooms. Okay, with well-designed rooms, and support that with a tiered services offering that made the customer satisfaction obviously started to go way up. The balance of investment in this stage had shifted from essentially 98% into the technology to 50% into technology and 50% into all the surrounding support that's required. The analytics was still the spreadsheet. Okay, the spreadsheet grew. It got better. It added success rates and service quality metrics. It got prettier. You can read this, nice chart. But it was still a monthly report. It was very limited in what it could do, but it was satisfying a lot of the needs at that time. So at the end of this period, 2005, we're up to 120 rooms, 2,500 meetings, but it was a big turnaround. And the big point is number 2. Confidence in this service was at an all-time high. People knew that they could rely on it for any kind of meeting they wanted to have. Okay. So, and because the investment was there, the dollars had gone up a lot. The reporting requirement was still there, but again, fairly limited in what it could do. Now, in this 2005-2006 time frame, the company changed. This is where we get into the globalization thing that Andrew was talking about. The company started to operate differently. Instead of everything being San Jose-centric, they started to buy companies. If you recall the Macromedia acquisition. It was closed at the end of 2005. And Adobe India was being invested in very heavily. These are just emblematic. There were lots of other similar transactions and changes that started to occur. So what happened was all those new groups and off-site operations were making their own decisions, and the rate at which the conferencing services team had to act and make decisions to support all that activity was also increasing dramatically. Okay? In this process, remember I mentioned the confidence level was up high. Well, what that means is when a new acquisition was closed, the first thing that happened was all the conferencing technologies were deployed into those new facilities. New buildings got built. It's all going in automatic. Okay. The deployment over this period grew tremendously. I think in this 800, I think it's about 290 conference rooms plus the rest are various desktops. And this last point, the conferencing services team really had to figure out how to keep pace with all of this activity. So the information needs to make good decisions, to reduce risk, and to manage cost became much more critical. But the spreadsheet just wasn't doing the job anymore. Monthly was too late. There would be decisions that they had to make, in real time. The limited scope, the number of questions that this tool could answer was very limited. A key thing, though, was with all this activity, making sure that the spreadsheet actually reflected reality was starting to become too difficult to do. Okay? So they needed another solution. We spoke to them about the reporting platform that we were developing in middle of 2009. They loved the idea. They said, let's just do it. And so what we did was we deployed this platform, and we went from that other mode to this mode where we have hourly data collection. It's automatic. We gather all the information on the hour. They can generate a whole host of reports on demand. It only takes, remember the monthly report? Well, the monthly report, the data was gathered manually at the end of the month. But then it takes 4 or 5 days to make sure that the spreadsheet works and everything's right, and you finally end up, getting everything entered. You push the button and you get the result. Now we're talking about seconds to produce similar kinds of reports. And we have the ability to be completely hands-off. The reports get generated automatically and distributed automatically. This changes, in a big way, the way the team actually manages. Okay. Here's what's deployed very quickly. You heard about cloud-hosted applications. Well, this is one of those. We gather data from the call management server located inside of Adobe's firewall. We do that with a data collection agent that grabs the data every hour and pumps it up over a secure link. And users access the console for running things from a browser or from anywhere. Joe does some stuff from his mobile. When he wants to run, or anybody on his team wants to run something, they go to this portal, they select a report, they configure it for the endpoints or whatever other things they need to configure, the date range, and they run it. They take a look at what the results look like. This is a service management report, and they can then, if they like it, they can save it to run it in the future. So you can be, you have to configure this thing every time. And they can be scheduled to run on whatever schedule you want. Okay, now, who needs information in the enterprise? It's certainly Joe, but it's his people below on the right side here. His team has information needs. His management has a different set of information needs, and there's information that he needs to supply to the business side. To meet all of those needs, he's got a bunch of different categories of reports that can be generated. And this is growing all the time. Right now we've done about 50 different types of reports. And he'll select, to solve a specific problem, one or more of these can be combined to tell a whole story. Some of them are at a very detailed level, and others are very, very high level. So now I'm going to turn it over to Joe, and he will tell you a little bit about how he uses it.